Okay guys, we're back. Our August 2022 real estate market snapshot. I think I've been saying continues because it never ends. So here we are with our market forecast. Very, very interesting things going on. Last month I introduced this QR code to you. This is one of a couple of ways I'm getting this data and all this information out to you. So pause the video, take a picture, go there periodically if you find value in what we're doing, because in addition to this QR code, which takes you to kind of the Lance Martin page, but it also links you back to the real estate market forecast page where all of this content resides. So at any rate, if you see some value in it, snap that QR code and away you go. If this looks familiar to you, it should. I basically read this quote to you last month. This is a quote from our Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, from now about 45 days ago. And let me just go back a minute. And the gist of this quote is the Fed chair saying we need a reset in the economy, we need a reset in what's going on. And he specifically in this quote calls out real estate specifically. So that I felt was interesting, not necessarily a surprise because we have so much economic news going on. We probably could do a whole half hour just on inflation alone. I mean, things are just completely spiraling. I won't say out of control, but we certainly have a lot of activity and a lot of news to report. But one of the things that I believe the Fed chair is trying to accomplish, which is a relatively new term to me, although I guess if you're an economist, this is something that is used periodically depending upon what you're doing, is they appear to be attempting to do what's called demand destruction, which just on the surface, I just hate the sound of that. But just to oversimplify it, and again, I'm not an economist, but to oversimplify it, if we raise interest rates, mortgage rates specifically, that will, I guess, destruct demand, lower demand, therefore cool the market off, and in effect, at least on the inflationary side, which again, we always call real estate appreciation, not inflation, but let's just use those words interchangeably, it slows things down. So at any rate, the demand destruction appears to be in full swing. And I have a question mark here. Has that mission been accomplished? I'm going to show you some stuff that certainly says if it's not accomplished, I don't know if they're finished. I don't want to pull a George Bush on the deck of the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished banner behind me. Having said that, we're certainly seeing some demand destruction. So anyway, we're going to talk a little bit more about this as we move forward. So our general theme on these for the last 12 months is Inland Southern California update. That's what we're going to do. We're going to basically talk about interest rates as well, and we're going to jump right in with our first county, Los Angeles County. Oh, but by the way, before I go any further, if you're wondering what's happened to me, no, I don't have monkeypox, but I have been going to the dermatologist and he's burning some stuff off my face. So at any rate, next month, hopefully I'll be clean, and I'm told I'll be looking 5 years younger. So we'll see. At any rate, wear your sunscreen. All right, so let's start with median price, Los Angeles County. So this is our 12-month chart. It's been looking very familiar to us. I left the bar in here. You can definitely see a pullback in median price over the last 3 months in LA County. We're going to talk more about that because all of these charts are going to look so similar. This is the 12-month LA County chart. Again, it's a little more prominent when you look at it on the 12-month with those bars isolated. And well, what does that mean? Well, I've got some new charts for you this month, and I have a feeling for those of you who are like, gosh, Lance, these market forecasts every single month look so similar. I just kind of feel like you're just replaying the tape, or at least reusing the same charts. I assure you I am not reusing the same charts, but as we move forward over the next several months, I think what you're going to find is I'm going to start adding some new charts because things are rapidly changing, and I think we need to isolate a few things. So what I isolated here is this is just the last 3 months. This is May, June, July 2022. Obviously, May was the peak in property values for LA County, pulled back a little bit in June, pulled back a little bit more in July. So for those of you that have been calling for a pullback or a crash, I'm not using the crash word, but if you're calling to say, hey, things are going to soften up a little bit, well, they have. So I wanted to put this in perspective, though. This is a year-to-date chart for LA County, all right? And I'm going to have the 3-month isolation chart and a year-to-date chart for all of the counties that we're going to talk about in this session. They look very similar, but I do think they're important. So when you take a look at a pullback, but then when you compare it to where we are year-to-date, maybe it doesn't feel so bad. Which, by the way, again, we weren't talking about a pullback in property values back here when we saw values pull back a little bit. We weren't talking a pullback in values here or even here when we saw values pull back a little bit, or we certainly weren't talking crashes and using the recession word and all the rest of that. But I do think it's important to keep it in perspective. We've certainly seen a pullback in property values the last couple of months, but at least so far on a year-to-date basis, we are still in positive territory. So let's take a look at what that means for LA County. So $110,000 median price, that is 5.2% higher than a year ago. So we're positive territory. That price a year ago was $770. 2 years ago, $650. We're 24.6% higher than we were 2 years ago in LA County. So, well, wait a minute. What about what's happening right now? What's happening right now? Well, the last 3 months in LA County, we've seen a 4% pullback, 4.1% pullback. If that trend continues, then yeah, bad things start to happen. But take a deep breath. Let's calm down a little bit. Year to date in LA County, we basically are at a 5.5% positive. So we'll see. We'll see, of course, where this shakes out. What sort of demand destruction or frankly fear in the marketplace drives this market in the direction it's been heading, which is more supply, less demand, and therefore, you know, hey, it's a supply and demand driven deal. So at any rate, so I'm going to use this same theme with the other counties. I'm probably not going to explain it exactly as in much detail, but you're going to definitely see a trend as we go through Riverside and San Bernardino counties and my spotlight city this month. So this is median price for LA. Let's take a look at the supply and demand numbers for LA County. And again, I'm going to stop here and pause because when I get to Riverside County and I get to San Bernardino County, there's going to be some major differences in those counties compared to LA. The one major difference is the supply. We are definitely on an upward trend in supply. That's good. I think we've been seeing that. But we're certainly on a downward trend if you want to take a look at the 2-year trend, or quite honestly, even if you want to take a look at the 1-year trend. This is a year ago. This bar is a little lower than a year ago. So bottom line is LA County's inventory is still lower than it was a year ago and certainly lower than it was 2 years ago. Why is that important? I just think it is, and we'll compare it to the other counties as well. We'll talk about the under contracts here on the next chart, or actually on the summary chart. So this is the 12-month isolation view for LA County. You can look at that later if you'd like. So what does it mean? 16,000 plus homes for sale. That's 8.4% less than a year ago, 12.5% less than 2 years ago. So even though the inventory has been building month over month in LA, it's still low, all right? The pendings at 35 plus. These are big numbers, guys. This is what has people nervous in my industry. And if you're, this is again, demand destruction, okay? 27% fewer buyers and sellers put themselves under contract than did a year ago, and 26%, actually, let's call it 27%, than did 2 years ago. So let's just say we're selling 25%, a quarter percent fewer homes in LA County than we did a year ago and than we did 2 years ago. We don't like that. We don't like that. So is that a concern? Sure, it's a concern. And is it interest rate driven? I think it is a lot interest rate driven. We'll talk about that before we close out today's session. Riverside County, price, again, similar looking chart. Guess what? Almost the same. If you thought I was cheating, you can say, Lance, wait a minute, is that the same chart? It's not the same chart. Looks very similar though. Here's our 12-month isolation shot. It's pulled back. Again, the peak, but by the way, the peak in every single county that I'm looking at was May. So May was the high so far year to date, and frankly, if we want to go back in time, at least for now, we can say prices have peaked in May, pulled back a little bit in June, pulled back a little bit in July. You'll see that in all of our counties that we're looking at. So that's a trend we're going to take a look at. So what does that mean? Oh, I isolated the 3 months. There's our 3-month chart. Yes, it's a downward angle, but what about year to date? It looks like it's flat, but it's not. That's actually a 2.7% increase. So year to date in Riverside County, we are still to the positive, even though we've had a pullback in the last 3 months. So what does it mean? So 570,000, that's up 7.5% from 12 months ago, which was 530, 430 2 years ago, still 32% increase. And I think this is part of the challenge for so many of the agents, everybody in the industry, if you will, and certainly the buyers and sellers, we've been seeing these dramatically ridiculous price increases, 20% year over year, 32% in the last 24 months. Guys, it's unsustainable. We've been talking about it's unsustainable. I guess now we're at that point that's, okay, well, when it's no longer sustainable, okay, well, then what happens? Well, what's happened is what's happening right now. And I guess we'll kind of figure out what this is going to look like over the next 3, 6, 12, 24 months. But 3 months, we're down 3.7% in Riverside County, but we're still up 2.7% year to date. So again, relax. You know, most of us aren't looking at things on a monthly basis or every 2 or 3 month basis. Supply and demand in Riverside County. I told you guys to pause a minute ago when we had the LA County chart up because it's different. The supply in Riverside County is at least at a 2-year high, certainly not an all-time high, I almost slipped up there, but it's certainly at a 2-year high. The chart's going up, it's higher than it was 2 years ago, it's certainly higher than it was a year ago, unlike LA County. LA County has more inventory, but still hasn't surpassed 12 months ago or 24 months ago. I think that's a big deal, and I like it. I like the inventory. One chart I did not bring, and I should have added, I guess I'll have to add it next month. We have not looked at months supply of inventory. I'll just tell you what it is. You can trust me or you can verify it, and I'll bring it in next month. We're still at less than somewhere between 2.5% and 3% month supply inventory in almost every one of these marketplaces. That is still a very tight and restricted market. Depending upon who you're talking to, somewhere between 5 and 6 months supply is considered normal if there is such a thing. So we're still well below normal inventory levels. But when you compare it to, you know, 2 weeks of inventory, standing inventory, that's when people get nervous. My house hasn't sold in 2 weeks, or my house didn't sell in 3 days. No, it didn't. Calm down, relax. Unfortunately, what I'm finding is there's not a lot of people calming down and relaxing. I see more hysteria and panic than anything else. So anyway, this is the 2-year supply and demand chart, the 12-month supply and demand chart for Riverside County. So what does it mean? 7,200 houses for sale, 16% more than a year ago, 10% more than 2 years ago, unlike LA. Both of those numbers in LA County were negative. So as, frankly, a broker who does a lot of business in Riverside County, I like that. I like that. We have some houses to sell. We need that. Just under 2,000 homes went into escrow. I don't like this. Okay, just like we talked about in LA County, 20% fewer homes than a year ago, 30% fewer homes in escrow than 2 years ago. This is bad. This is demand destruction. This is people saying, I don't want to buy. I don't want to buy because of interest rates, or I don't want to buy because I think the market's too hot, or I don't want to buy because I think we're in a recession, or I don't know if we are in a recession, or what's the definition of a recession, or just constantly being bombarded with stuff and trying to figure out what that means. And when people get confused, they get a little fearful, and what do? They don't do anything. And I truly see that's what's happening in our marketplace. So this is, again, Riverside County supply and demand. Let's take a look at San Bernardino. Charts look very, very similar. Again, we've got our little hump here where we've pulled back in value. There's our 12-month chart in San Bernardino. Again, almost identical pullback the last 3 months in the entire county of San Bernardino. But again, positive year to date. As a matter of fact, San Bernardino County is more positive. In other words, the percent increase in value since January 1 is higher than the other two counties, certainly. But again, yes, we pulled back, but we've just pulled back from the high in May. We haven't pulled back from our January 1, if you want to call that a start date, or at least our year-to-date number. So what do these numbers look on the chart? 505 for San Bernardino, 9.1% higher than 12 months ago, which was 462. Very similar to similar to Riverside County number. San Bernardino County over 2 years is 34% increase. Can't do it forever, guys. Can't do it forever. So maybe we've seen the end of forever, okay? 3 months, pulled back, let's call it 3%, but again, 6.3% up year to date. So we're going to keep a very, very close eye on these numbers over the next several months. I will tell you, one thing that really has my attention with this, we don't normally see, we do see pullbacks. Let me go back a couple slides, see if I can use this as an example. So, well, it was pretty flat here in San Bernardino. Slight pullback here, slight pullback here. If I went and I pulled other charts for the other counties, you would see these various pullbacks. What you generally don't see is you don't see a price softening in May, June, July. Okay? Normally, if you're going to see a price softening, you'll see it in October, September, November, January. So the fact that we are seeing some pullbacks in prices in the summertime, in our seasonal months, has my attention. Absolutely, for sure. Okay, so these are the numbers for San Bernardino County on median price, supply and demand. San Bernardino County, again, supply is up. Very similar chart to Riverside County. In contrast to LA County, again, more houses for sale than 2 years ago, more houses for sale than 12 months ago. I like it. And frankly, I anticipate that to continue to increase. I saw something on the news this morning. I was going to grab a chart and throw it on. I think very recently, I think it was after the last Fed funds rate, the number of Google searches of, I'm assuming homeowners, doing a search on Google that says, how do I sell my house fast, increased by exponentially, thousands and thousands of percent. So again, but that's another just a piece of news that someone sees. I see it, I'm repeating it here. Well, apparently people are maybe concerned and thinking about, hey, maybe I should put my property on the market and sell it fast. All right. So again, I do anticipate these inventory numbers to increase. The irony of this is we have been crying for more houses to sell and screaming about how low inventory has been for years now. Okay. Well, we finally have it, and now we're not happy. We're not happy because our demand has been destroyed, or at least been destructed a little bit. So, and again, I'm using that term tongue in cheek, but we're definitely seeing something like that happening right now. So this is the 2-year chart, supply and demand for San Bernardino County. What does it mean? Again, inventory up almost 13% in the last 12 months, 8% in the last 24 months. But again, look at these numbers here, lower right-hand corner. All 3 counties, bad, bad, bad. 28% reduction in buyers and sellers coming together and opening an escrow in the last 12 months, 36% in the last 2 years. Buyers have said, I'm taking a pause. So we'll see what happens with that. My spotlight city, Moreno Valley. Most of you know I have an office in Moreno Valley. Ironically, I haven't done Moreno Valley as a spotlight city in a long time. I chose it for a reason. I chose it for one reason because maybe Moreno Valley, for some of you, might have a reputation as one of the ground zeros in the foreclosure crisis. It certainly was, and we did a lot of business in the city. I am not by any stretch implying that we're going to see a foreclosure crisis, but I thought we'd share with you what's going on here in Moreno Valley because I find it interesting. Again, almost identical chart to the counties, pullback in value, peak in May. There's our 2-year chart, just isolates it a little bit more. And again, my eyes are just brought in here with that increase and decrease in the last few months. There's the 3-month chart. That's 4.5% decrease in Moreno Valley median in 3 months. But our year-to-date chart has us up a little over 5%. So yes, we lost value in the last 3 months, but we're still positive. So where are we in Moreno Valley? The median's up almost 11% in 12 months. Guys, that seems like such a small number, but an 11% increase in median property values in 12 months is huge. Okay, it's absolutely huge. 40%, and again, depending upon what month you pick, which, by the way, what month did I pick? I picked July 2020 to July 2022. That's the 2 years. It's 40%. It's a ridiculous number. Cannot do that. 2, 3, 4, 5%, 6%. Okay, fine. 11%, too much. So at any rate, so that's where we are in Moreno Valley. This is the last 3 months. Yes, I think that's the largest number we posted. 4.5% pullback in the last 3 months. That does surprise me a little bit. I was talking to Chuck Whitehead, Coldwell Banker Associated Brokerages last week, and we're talking about inventory and escrows and what are we seeing and what are they seeing. I said, well, our numbers are actually pretty good. We're not that we haven't seen a pullback, but our numbers are pretty good. And I attribute that to we have a lower price point. We are in a more affordable price point. Having said that, I guess it's getting more affordable, but I wouldn't have anticipated a 4.5% pullback in Moval. I would expect something, but I wasn't anticipating that much. But still, 5.1% year-to-date increase in median on a year-to-date. What's supply and demand doing in Moval? Again, it's up from 2 years ago, but certainly isn't up from 1 year ago. I mean, we had this nice little spike in the city of Moreno Valley. It's a little bit different, but certainly up from 2 years ago. This is the 12-month chart. We'll just blow past that one. By the way, you guys know all these charts are available, so if you click on that QR code, not only will you have the video, but we'll give you a link to the actual, we don't use PowerPoint, it's a Canva presentation, but you can actually view the slides yourself. So this is supply and demand for Moreno Valley, small sample. Ironically, last month we did Temecula. Temecula had 443 properties on the market. I just found that was interesting as I was editing these slides this morning. So the month of July in Moreno Valley was 444, 7%. This is wrong. That number's wrong. It's 7% decrease. I apologize. I have to fix that. I will fix it on the slide. 7% decrease from a year ago, but a 23% increase from 2 years ago. But again, here we are. 25, let's call it 26% fewer homes sold year over year, July to July 2022 to 2021. It's a rough number. We're seeing these big double-digit reductions in buyers and sellers coming together. Not quite as bad as 2 years ago, but nevertheless, the pending sales have fallen. Again, demand destruction. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about interest rates because I do believe interest rates have driven so much of this, along with the reporting of the interest rates and everything else going on in the economy. There's so much news, it's just overwhelming for me. And I'm somebody who actually enjoys this stuff. God forbid if you didn't enjoy it, it's got to be completely overwhelming. So where are we with interest rates? So I've done something a little bit different with our interest rate chart because I think this is critical. And quite honestly, if I put you to sleep in the last few minutes, watch the next 3 minutes because I think this is probably one of the most important things that I want to get through to my buyers and my sellers and my agents and the people who actually listen to what I'm looking at. So this is a year-to-date, January 1 through August 31st interest rate chart, 30-year conforming loans. And this is put out by Optimal Blue. There's actually a link to Optimal Blue if you use that QR code, and you can pull up and you can get this exact same data that I use. Just click on that link. It's always 1 day behind though, so it's not real time. So if you are watching CNBC and you hear something horrible, whatever they're going to post on that link is 24 hours old. But at any rate, so this is a 12-month chart. We basically have settled in at, let's just call it 5.5% interest rate as of yesterday. So there you go. And if you go back 12 months, this number here was, let's just call it 3 7/8. All right, January, I said 12 months, I apologize. If you go to January 1st, 2022, about 3 7/8. So let's just say we've added a little less than 2% interest rates since January. So let's put this in context though. The Fed has met four times this year, specifically to address Fed funds rate, which gets tied back to mortgage interest rates and a whole bunch of other things. So they did a 25% basis point on March 15th. They did 50 basis points May, okay? 50 basis points May 3rd, 4th meeting. I think it was probably announced on the 4th. 75 basis point last month, June 15th, and just a week ago, another 75 basis points. So I'm going to kind of forget about the first one, but since May, that's 2.5 months ago, right? May, June, 3 months ago. So 3 months ago, the Fed has increased the Fed funds rate by 200 basis points or 2%, okay? So what have our interest rates done? So I went back to March 1st. I probably shouldn't have gone back that far. I probably should have just went to May, because if I look at May, that's basically a 5.5% interest rate. On May 1st, let's go back. 50 basis points, 75 basis point. So all of this has happened in the last 3 months. If we go back 3 months ago, and I guess I messed up, I guess I messed up when I did this chart. I should have basically stopped at May. This is March, okay? May puts us right about here. Again, let's call it a 5% interest rate. Well, the Fed has raised the Fed Fed funds rate by 2% in that period of time. We did see an interest rate that so far peaked a little bit above 6. We all heard the news because it was nonstop that we have 6% mortgage rates. But that was, June 15th. That was 45 days ago. 45 days ago, we had interest rates above 6. In that same period of time, the Fed's raised the discount rate 150 basis points or 1.5. And what's happened to our interest rates since then? Basically, interest rates have gone down, okay? They've gone down. They peaked back up in the last few days, but they went down into the lower 5s, 5.25-ish. Today, again, let's call it 5.5. But again, if you're looking at a demand destruction, this doesn't explain all of it. I think what explains most of it, I think, is just the psyche. The psyche is when they're going to come out and say the Fed's rates have gone up and they've gone up and they've gone up. People don't necessarily understand that 95% of that's already baked in. The industry has already got it baked in. They certainly already had in the last 2 Fed funds rates increases baked in. How do I know that? Because the rates didn't go up. If anything, they went down. So we'll see where they are a month from now. But interest rates basically are at 5.5, even with all this activity coming out of the Fed. So take that for what it's worth. I personally think it's important. I'm almost done. I want to do a commercial for my friend Bruce Norris. And by the way, I guess this is a good time to say it. Bruce lost his son, Aaron Norris, which was a huge part of the Norris Group and helped Bruce put on his market timing events and the I Survive Real Estate event. Anyway, if you know Aaron, you know, we lost him, I don't know, I guess about a month or so ago. So anyway, our hearts go out to Bruce and the family. So at any rate, we love you. We love you, Aaron. But this weekend, 2 days from now, today's Thursday, August 4th, this weekend, Saturday, August 6th, it's probably too late to get a ticket, maybe, maybe not, but Bruce is doing his market timing event. It's an all-day event. He does what I do, except he does it 10 times better, and he does it for 8 hours. He's calling it uncharted territory. And if you talk to Bruce, that title is not chosen randomly, okay? Bruce is a chart guy. His entire presentation for 8 hours, you think I like charts. Bruce is nuts for charts. It's all charts, graphs, and his interpretation of what they mean. I guess I'll find out on Saturday when I spend 8 hours with Bruce and about 500 other people as to what he means by uncharted territory. But I think what he means is his charts aren't working for him. His charts don't predict with any sort of accuracy what's happening. So it'll be very, very interesting to see what Bruce has to say this week. So if you do follow Bruce, you should go to his event on, it's not cheap, but you should go to his event on Saturday, or at least try to get the stuff after the fact. So go to thenorrisgroup.com and you can find his information there. So good stuff. I rely on Bruce heavily. So I think that's all I've got today. Yep, we are good. Thank you for watching our August 2022 Snapshot. We'll see you in a month, and fasten your seatbelt.